pallbearers leading the way, closely followed by what follows is President, and then the rest of invited guests. Remember, this is going to be a private affair at Kang'o Ka Jaramogi. The family has requested, because of the space that is actually available at Kang'o Ka Jaramogi, just to allow family members, high-ranking government officials, and those invited to attend the ceremony, the private ceremony that will be happening there. That is the ceremony of interring the remains of the former Prime Minister Raila Amolo Odinga. That has always been the case, even when his son Fidel Macarius Odinga died. It was just a ceremony of a select few who were allowed into that home, and that is mainly because of the space that is actually available there. Just take you through some of the things that have actually been talked about by the leaders who stood and spoke about the former Prime Minister, talking about the political class, of course, describing him as a mentor par excellence, a teacher who taught most of them how to do politics, how to navigate through the murky field that is Kenya's politics, how to ensure that indeed they remained afloat. One of the key elements that have actually been brought to the fore has been that of the former ODM Deputy Party Leader Wycliffe Ambetsa Oparanya was pointed out clearly that indeed one of the messages that the former Prime Minister Raila Amolo Odinga told him was that never sever bridges, never burn bridges, and also there are no permanent enemies in politics, there are no permanent friends in politics. A mantra that the former Prime Minister lived by himself, and of course ensured that even in difficult situations, times when people thought that they will never talk to this politician or the other politician, he always had that opportunity of or that skill of mending fences and finding a common ground in terms of ensuring that indeed this country moves forward. The president, of course, moving the crowd with a revelation of finer details of exactly what happened in the last 3 months. The president saying that he was concerned about the former premier's health, and he indeed asked the premier to seek the best available medical attention. And of course there were a number of options, and eventually he decided that he's gonna go to India for treatment. He says, of course, in his wisdom and of course the powers bestowed upon him, he said that the government, he assured the family of the former premier that indeed the government will take care of any costs that are actually needed in terms of ensuring that the former premier is taken care of. And indeed he says he was abreast on a daily, almost on a daily basis, of exactly what was happening in India and the treatment that indeed the former premier was undergoing. He also says that he also recounts on the day, of the fateful day when we lost the former premier. He says he received a call from Uhuru Odinga, the elder brother to Raila Amolo Odinga, and then shortly after he received a call again from Uhuru Odinga, and then he tried calling Raila Odinga's daughter Winnie, who has been by the father's side for quite some time, and then shortly after Winnie called back. Shortly after, of course, it was very clear or evident that indeed we had lost the former premier. President William Ruto, of course, also revealing finer details of the last moment engagement with the former premier in terms of just what he wanted for this country. He says the former premier, again in his true element, was worried about this country's position as a third world country, and one of the resolve they had actually made together with the president and the former president Uhuru Kenyatta was to find ways of ensuring that they moved this country from third world state to a better position. And he says part of the issues they had actually discussed on was infrastructural development and general development of the country. And he says that the former premier had actually sought the services of a former of a renowned professor, Japanese professor, who was to come and find a solution in terms of giving a structured steps of how the leaders and of course the government would actually find ways of ensuring that indeed this government, this country moved from its current state to a better state. President William Ruto also revealing that indeed that is a commitment he undertook to ensure that indeed is actualized. And here amongst the issues that they had actually discussed, he says, was the extension of the SGR from Naivasha all the way to Siaya and all the way to Malaba. He also says that the dueling of Rironi, the dueling of the road from Rironi all the way to Eldoret and to Malaba, and of course also ensuring that it passes through Kericho all the way to Busia. Those were some of the highlights of the discussions, just to ensure that indeed the vision and the desires of the former premier were actually met in terms of ensuring that indeed this country moved to the next step. But one of the things that have actually been discussed here is the need to keep the country first. Each and every leader has spoken to what the former premier believed in, and even the Speaker of the National Assembly, Moses Masika Waitangula, saying that after they lost the 2017 general poll, and he thought that everything was actually lost. He says that the former premier called him and another leader, and they went all the way to South Africa for a week. And he says that the message that constantly came from the former premier was about the need to ensure that indeed this country remained united, this country remained stable, that indeed he says that the country, the unity of the country superseded any other interest, according to Raila Amolo Odinga. Of course, we also heard from the family members who have told us who exactly Raila Amolo Odinga was from his childhood up until what we've actually had to see as Kenyans. The brother Oburu Odinga saying that they were very close in terms of just growing up together, very close association and everything. They were very close. But one thing that he remembers about Raila Amolo Odinga was his commitment to education. The other thing that he remembers about Raila Amolo Odinga was the fact that Raila Odinga, at a very tender age, didn't like injustices. He started showing from that tender age that injustice was not something that he would actually tolerate. And he cited an example where a teacher actually punished the former premier, and as was the tradition then, they expected that, of course, the former premier will stand up and say thank you, but he said, or salute the punishing teacher. But of course, that did not happen, and he said that will not happen. That, of course, was also corroborated by his sister Ruth Odinga and many other leaders who actually spoke, just speaking to what the former premier believed in. Of course, the procession now is heading to the former premier, to the home of Jaramogi Oginga Odinga, where the former premier will actually be laid to rest. He's actually going to be laid to rest next to his father's grave at Kang'o Ka Jaramogi. So I will hand over to my colleague Doreen Arange in studio. So then, of course, he takes over before we get to Kang'o Ka Jaramogi, and of course my colleague Weekly Fokech, who is actually standing by in Kang'o Ka Jaramogi, will ensure that indeed we can actually find the best picture.
Simon Achola for that update, just giving us a quick update of what has been happening since 9:15 a.m. That is when the body of the late former Prime Minister Raila Odinga arrived at the Jaramogi Oginga Odinga University of Science and Technology, the venue for that funeral service. And this was after it left Opoda farm that is in his home. Took about 45 minutes, and this was also occasioned by the crowds, just basically what you're seeing there, the crowds that were along the road. But at that moment, security agencies just assured that they are doing everything to ensure that everything stays as per planned. You've clearly heard the speeches that have come forth revering the person that was Raila Odinga, the kind of man that he was. Also political talks equally also took center stage there. But just in quick succession, trying to ensure that they stick to time. The family has also said that this is going to be a private burial. This just means going to be the family members and, of course, the head of state, the former president as well, retired President Uhuru Kenyatta, and his friend, longtime friend, the former Nigerian president. But you're seeing thousands of mourners who had come from wide across and beyond, looking like they are also heading to Kang'o Ka Jaramogi, the final resting place of Raila Odinga, where he'll be buried next to his father, that is the first vice president, Jaramogi Oginga Odinga. I really wonder how that is going to look like and how that is going to pan out. But I believe security agencies, they're just really putting their ducks in a row to ensure everything is set. You can remember, as was mentioned earlier by the Interior Cabinet Secretary Kipchumba Murkomen, as well as various other security agencies, that everything is well placed to ensure there's no chaos and nothing goes beyond that which was planned. But again, you're seeing just, the majority of Kenyans who had turned out waving the flag, some donned in the orange T-shirts. There are those who are waving white handkerchiefs, perhaps a sign of peace. On the other side of the split screen there, you're seeing the final resting place. And this has been ongoing. You remember Engineer Akech just explaining the kind of technology that had been used in that to put up that grave. Yesterday also, the sister to the former Prime Minister Raila Odinga, the late, that is Ruth Odinga, county woman, member of National Assembly, was also there inspecting, ensuring that gravesite, everything is okay. The military already did that final bit of taking the body and just moving it slowly in slow procession as they head over to Kang'o Ka Jaramogi. This actually, I understand, is about 1 kilometer or 2 from the Jaramogi Oginga Odinga University of Science and Technology all the way to Kang'o Ka Jaramogi. And what you saw in the morning is also part of what you're seeing on the other side of the split screen. The convoy moving in slow procession, perhaps a sign of respect, not very quickly, just in slow way to ensure that they reach there also again in good time, because it's 30 minutes past 4 p.m. And as Millie, who has been here since morning, was trying to tell us that as per the culture, a man of such stature needs not to be buried past sunset.
Yes, it is the correct thing that they buried in good time and before sunset. It is also anticipated most of the time that when a person of that stature is buried, then people should have enough time to be able to conclude the rituals of the day before the sun sets.
But then look at that. Looks like that procession has increased speed, perhaps just trying to feed into what you're saying, that we can no longer waste time, just taking a cue of how much time the speeches did take at the university. But then, Job, what really do you draw from the speeches and what stood out for you? Because it really took quite the time. We were here at 9:15, we're leaving at 4:15 p.m.
Yes.
What stood out for you?
I like the way that the church gave the family and all those people who are cohorting with the Baba time. They made it very short, precise, good sermon from Bishop Wesonga, and then the family was given time. No one pushed them. The family had as much time as they could get to eulogize Baba and then talk about him. And if you get the speeches from the family, each of them went about trying to bring out some virtue about Baba. Now, from a a close and personal level. Most of them did not really talk about him as a politician, but just how whatever he was doing was affecting them, be it positively or negatively. And it was interesting to hear how the young Baba in school looked like. And this is what even Oburu said when he was in Nyayo. Baba used to be #1 in school. He never took injustice lying down. I like that case where when the mom had already asked for permission for them to be out of school and take care of their sisters, the teacher still went ahead to cane them, and Baba could not take it. So he refused to accept that caning, saying, you know what, you are going to cane me and cane me, but I knew my mom had told you that you are not coming to school. So I like that. That is the Baba we know.
Someone who really stood his ground.
He stood
and
his
this
ground,
feeds into the kind of
a reason, a justified reason why he's taking that point. And then when he moved from the family, of course, Ruth had a very interesting one. Yeah, she took advantage of that occasion to tell us more about the people she cohorts with. And then now we move on to the rest of the politicians. I like also the fact that they gave the ODM party a good space to talk to their members, assure them on what's going to happen. And it became very interesting as to what the ODM top brass were saying. But generally they all agreed that broad-based is something that Baba left them in, and they're going to stick with it. Where I could feel a bit of difference was there are one or two of them who are not so sure beyond 2027 whether they want to stick with the president and whatever agreement that they're going to do. And then everybody trying to outdo each other to say how he was the chosen one by Baba.
The loyal one.
Yeah, that became very interesting. Those who never betrayed Baba, those who betrayed Baba, those to whom Baba was calling, and it was a very good spectacle. But the speeches were nice. Then I like the way that they recognize all the state, or in fact, the arms of government. It was interesting that no one spoke on behalf of the judiciary. I don't know why, whether it was by omission or by design. But Baba, being Baba, somebody from the judiciary should have, at least even what he did as Prime Minister during the governance and justice and legal reforms, the GJ laws. Remember that period? I think you will know that because as you are failed, Baba did a lot of work for those judicial reforms. So somebody from the judiciary should have at least said something.